sexy on Secular Sexuality.
Hello, and welcome to Secular Sexuality, the show where we join you every week to talk about hearts, parts, and everything in between. Joining me tonight is Bianca, as well as from Forbidden Fruit, the store that's been keeping Austin kinky since 1981. We have Megan and Andy. They're going to be talking with us tonight about how we can add a little bit of extra sex, a little bit of extra perversion even to some of the regular household items from our daily life. So we're going to be talking about sex toys, what not to use, and all of the kinky, fun ways that we can get into trouble at home. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, we're going to jump in here in just a minute. I want to remind everybody that they can give us a call if you have any questions. Is this the right material? Is this safe? Can I put this in there? Can I do this with that? If you've got those kinds of questions, or if there's anything else on your mind, go ahead and give us a call. We're going to be at 512-686-0279. We've got a couple of lines open already. It's 512-686-0279. Well, all right. So you guys are here because you've got a whole workshop on this kind of material, and that's coming up next week?
It is. It's next Thursday evening.
Thursday evening. Okay. Well, luckily, this show, while taped live, is always available on YouTube. So if you're here in the Austin area, I definitely recommend you check that out. There are links in the YouTube notes and everywhere else, but people can also find that at forbiddenfruit.com.
Yes, forbiddenfruit.com, and we are all over the internet. We're on all social media, including FetLife, if you're familiar with that platform.
And if you are not, go back and watch the rest of this show. Watch literally any episode. I'm sure it'll come up at least once or twice.
Hopefully a few times.
Yeah, no question. Okay, so the class is coming up. I mean, what are y'all doing? What's the topic?
So largely it's kind of a celebration of the fact that everything that surrounds you can be used for sexy times.
Mm-hmm.
I have more of a creative aspect because, like, I make stuff out of wood, and church as well makes things too. So we're kind of, rather than what it's been more in like the past, which is this thing and this thing and this thing can be used, it's more of like, here's things which you can make as well.
Yeah. Well, I have to ask, as you know, Forbidden Fruit sells sex toys. Mm-hmm. And while I'm very excited to find out, you know, what in my silverware drawer might be an effective toy, why put yourselves out of business in this way? I mean, why, you know, offer these kinds of tips or insights?
So for me personally, there's a few reasons why I think this class is very important. One is because not everyone can afford to buy a toy. Another is that sometimes you want to try something out before you throw down a lot of money for the sensation of it. And not everyone's going to be into everything that they might be interested in initially. And also, people are going to do it anyway. And Andy and I are big believers in making things safer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes a lot of sense.
So what are some of the red flags or maybe just the concerns about how to, you know, what to avoid or how to do this safely?
Right. To take this one?
Well, like I mentioned earlier that I work with wood, so like a big thing with that is like if you pick something up, like make sure it's, you know, not got sharp edges or anything like that.
Yeah, splinters seem particularly concerning in this along this line of questioning.
Right.
A big thing that we talk a lot about whenever it comes to sex is sharing things with people. I specifically don't really do heavy treatments on wood because I like to maintain the grain and specifically the feel of the wood that you're using. And for that fact, like if you're going to get blood or other sort of bodily fluids on it,
porousness, right?
You shouldn't share the things like that specifically I make. Or if you go out and make something and don't do any treatment on it, like make sure that, like, you know, you're not sharing bodily fluids with someone who's not cool with that.
At Forbidden Fruit, we have a saying, it's one person, one hole, one toy. And in this case, we can say maybe one ass if it's a paddle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a good thing to keep in mind. Any other, you know, banners before we really get into it? Because I'd love to hear some of the particulars of what y'all work with, but I guess I am just having, like, legal agreements flash through my mind as I wonder about all of the trouble that folks can get into.
I would say less legal issue if all parties are consenting, and I agree with Andy, we shouldn't be sharing handmade toys. It's different with, say, a fully silicone dildo. You can't clean that. It's a medical product. The biggest issue is hospital visits.
Okay.
So,
Sounds like you've heard some horror stories in the past.
right, and I'm trying to update this. So if anyone here works for a hospital and the ER in particular or gets to hear about it, please call us and let me know if the statistic in Austin is right. So a few years ago, I heard it was 6 to 8 people a month went to the hospital just in Austin for inserting something anally that didn't have a base or a loop on it.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident there was an entire episode of Scrubs dedicated to that. There was it was on Grey's Anatomy, so it's not just happening in writers' rooms. This is a real phenomena of people losing their Hot Wheels car or whatever else.
Yes.
I heard light bulbs,
Yes.
which sounds really dangerous.
It's extremely dangerous. The sphincter is a really strong muscle. I would not recommend inserting anything glass that's hollow, period. And if you do have a handmade glass dildo, you want to make sure it's tempered properly. I don't know if we have any smokers in the audience, but when you use a glass pipe, it's made differently than, say, a glass dildo that has been tempered and cooled properly. So always ask about their process.
Yeah. So what we're talking about here, I guess, is that anything can be used for sexy time, for these different opportunities, but we want to be a little bit more discerning than just going with the heat of the moment.
Exactly.
Right. I heard that Gwyneth Paltrow's company
line?
Goop got into a little bit of trouble because she was suggesting like jade eggs. And I read that a lot of people who were, well versed in what you should and should not be using were like, jade, no, don't put that up there, because why would that be? Is that also porous? Is that the issue there?
That's exactly the reason. And there are some like crystal materials that, if properly made, there's certain materials that are better than others. I don't really mess in that field because I like crystals. They're pretty, but
they don't have magic vagina healing powers. They won't bring you love,
in my
is what
opinion,
you're suggesting.
No, the power of thought's very...
Sure.
Yeah, but I wouldn't recommend anything that Gwyneth Paltrow says personally.
Yeah, sounds like probably a good policy.
Okay. Well, fair enough. Tell me, before we get into the particulars of what y'all are teaching and what you brought here to show us tonight, do you have any goals or any big projects, like anything that you've made before that you're just like so proud of or wanted to show off or just talk about?
So like the white whale toy.
Yeah,
so
that homemade sex toy that like you saw on Reddit once and you're thinking, someday when I get my wood shop fully operational.
I do have dreams. This is a personal project. Are y'all familiar with the company Mr. S Leather?
I can't say I am.
Okay, it's like a warehouse-sized sex shop in San Francisco. It's specifically kink, and it's one of my favorite places in the world. They have like large welded full suspension beds with mattresses and everything. I would like to make something that's like posts like that big out of wood, like full up, where you can do a full weight suspension off of the bed.
Really elaborate, yeah.
But like a lot of I also teach like with like rope and bondage, and a lot of things with woodworking and very, very similar is the most dangerous thing is the unknown unknowns. And whenever it comes to like building something where you essentially have 4 posts going upwards and then is maintaining weight in the middle, it's understanding how to properly distribute the weights as it's pulling inward from a central point that can be sustainable over years. Because you want the piece of furniture to last. You don't want to have to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't be doing this show, wouldn't have gotten into this line of work if engineering came naturally to me at all. So I have to admit, I'm pretty fascinated to hear from y'all because my brain does not work that way, and I'm very nervous to go out on my own. So it's good to know that there is like a safe path that somebody else has already kind of cleared for us.
Thank you.
But with that, I do want to go ahead and take a call real quickly, and then you can kind of tell us a little bit more about, give us a demonstration of what you're going to be showing at the workshop.
Sounds great.
So with that, I'm going to go ahead and we'd like to talk to Nathan. Hi, Nathan. You're on the air with us.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Hey, not too bad. What's on your mind tonight?
Nice. So I, a few weeks ago, was watching The Atheist Experience, and a guy called in and talked with them for a while. He was in kind of a rough spot, but he mentioned towards the end of the call that he was a pedophile, and how he was having some problems with that, and his, because he was religious at one point, and talking about that. And after watching that show, I kind of went down a research rabbit hole where I was, because it just interested me, his position in life, about, what attractions are moral to have, if that is a valid question to ask, or if they're all amoral, or some are, some aren't, that sort of thing. So, I was curious where you guys might stand on that. So, is there any attractions that you guys think are moral or immoral, or all of them amoral? Or I guess I'm just curious what your opinions are.
Yeah, so it sounds like when you're asking about moral or amoral, by amoral you mean just sort of without morality. I think so often we use that word to describe something that is wrong or evil, kind of missing the actual Oxford. I mean, I don't mean to get too pedantic about it, but the real meaning of that word is just existing sort of outside of morality.
Right, like atheist versus anti-theist.
Right, exactly.
No, yeah, I don't think that necessarily personal attractions have any kind of moral implications, good or bad, necessarily. It's the action that has moral implications one way or the other. And if the other person can't consent, then it's not moral to act on that. But the attraction itself is not a moral question for me.
Yeah, and that's something we've said on this show a number of times, and I think one of the most fundamental, aside from like the magic and the facts of the Bible, but one of the biggest distinctions, I think, between sort of specifically Christian morality or the Christian worldview and what we talk about here is this idea that your thoughts aren't something that you should be held responsible for. And to try and control your thoughts, to try and change the way that you think can be a really difficult path, and to do so obsessively can actually be really hurtful to people. So finding some acceptance about those thoughts is one thing, but actually acting on them is a completely different thing.
Right, I would agree completely.
Yeah, and the guy that had called in to the Atheist Experience had mentioned that it was, he hadn't acted on them, but people had assumed he had, and that led to a lot of difficulties in his life.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that's, because like you had mentioned, that having attraction to someone isn't, a moral action, but acting on it is. I think that's one of the common things I've seen people discuss when they compare it to things like saying it's like being gay or any other orientation that you don't have a choice in the matter. But then people mention that like kids can't consent, so it's different, and therefore it is a bad thing.
Right.
But I think I'm with you guys in that it doesn't, just being attracted to something doesn't necessarily make you a moral monster, just for that's how your thoughts work.
Yeah, exactly. And some folks are attracted to things that are unavailable to them, that would be unethical or illegal or morally wrong to act on. Some people have attractions to things that are impossible. Spend 15 minutes on Tumblr, or at least the good old days of Tumblr, and you'll find plenty of things that are like logistically impossible. But the fact that people have that interest or that attraction is completely separate from actually doing something that's going to harm another person or remove somebody's autonomy or their ability to consent.
Right, and I think I just want to clarify that is the issue here, because a lot of the same language is used by some, LGBTQ affirming Christians who say, well, you can have the attraction, but don't act on it. The difference here is just the issue of consent.
Of course.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, and I guess the last thing I would say, unless you had anything else to wrap it up, was just that if we lived in a society where we felt comfortable talking about these things, where we weren't constantly clutching our pearls and panicking anytime somebody mentioned something that we don't like or don't feel comfortable with, that person would have a much easier time. It's not to say that they would, under any circumstances, be allowed to harm another person. Of course not. But if we were in an understanding society where we saw somebody who had that type of attraction, whether it's to something immoral and unethical to act out, or whether it's something improbable or whatever else, there are so many different ways to support people. And that shame and that loneliness is a huge part of what's making that person's life so difficult. So I think that we all have a moral responsibility to help build a more sex-positive, more communicative, just more understanding world. And that's part of why we're trying to do this every week. So I really appreciate you joining us and calling in.
Yeah, that was why I called in, is because it's difficult to find places or shows or communities or what have you that talk about these sort of things. So
yeah, I'm not entirely sure that just having this conversation hasn't completely demonetized us with YouTube. I think we'll have to dive into the particulars of their terms of service. But YouTube, as much as we're glad to be here on this platform, doesn't have the most sophisticated or sex-positive understanding of these issues either. So we're all working to build a better place while acknowledging that the world that we have is flawed.
Fair enough. Well, thank you guys for your time. That was what I wanted to just kind of touch base with you guys on. Just have a person-to-person, well, at least over the phone conversation about it. It's difficult to bring these things up in just casual conversation to delve deeper into it. So
yeah,
thank you guys for your time.
Absolutely. We have a great night. Yeah, so right out of the gates, kind of tricky material. Thank you all so much for being brave enough to come and join us tonight.
Of course.
But I think it is important that people feel that their interests, their attractions are, part of a well-balanced, healthy human diet, as long as they're acting on them in a way that's, safe, sane, consensual, and responsible in that way.
A lot of people like to use safe, sane, and consensual. Mm-hmm. There's a couple other things I like to use.
Yeah, throw it at me.
Because not a lot of people in this life are sane anymore. I know I don't feel that way all the time. There are a few. There's the 4 C's. It's like care, confidence. And there's RAC, it's risk-aware, consensual, kink. Mm-hmm. So I can always drop a note on the YouTube video later. There's a lot of really good acronyms that we use.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll make sure to throw that on the footnotes to the show, because I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. So give me RAC again one more time. I've heard that before.
Risk-aware, consensual, kink.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely am eager to dive into the stuff y'all brought with us tonight, but I'd like to go ahead and jump on the phones and check in with Kevin real quickly, if that's okay.
Okay.
Hey, Kevin, you're on the air with us. What's on your mind?
How y'all doing tonight?
Hey, not too bad.
Well, thanks.
All right, well, before I get into what I was going to talk about, I'd like to touch a little bit on what Megan and the other gentleman was talking about being safe with your toys. I have one myself, and I would just encourage anybody out there who is listening to the show to please just be safe with what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, and to know what you're doing is an important part of being safe.
And I always like to use the word safer.
Sure. I think that's important, acknowledging that there is always some risk implied in a lot of these activities.
Now, as far as what I called in for, I was at work about a week or so ago, and I happen to work with a couple of religious folks. I'm pretty sure y'all know how that can be. That's always fun.
It certainly can be.
I got into a conversation with a gentleman I work with, and it was Pride Month when this was going on, and basically he got to talking to somebody about Pride Month, and he said that if you can celebrate I'm not going to say what he said because I'm not trying to be rude on the show, but he said if you can celebrate being gay, why can't you celebrate Jesus? And I asked him, I said, do you think that it's a choice? And he basically told me, he said, absolutely, everything in this life is a choice. What are y'all's thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, the first thing I would say is that who is preventing anybody from celebrating Jesus?
I mean, we get most of our national holidays off because of that particular religion, so we're invested in this capital society, just monetarily,
very much so. I mean, there are no pride flags on our money. I'll tell you that much anyway.
It can be difficult to bring this up sometimes, but sometimes it's this environment of having to feel defensive, like that whatever your belief system is needs defense in general. And I've with Christianity, there's this odd culture around it, and it's not everybody, of course, but it's this belief that it's under assault from all non-Christian areas. And I think that's a very troubling thing, because it can be very difficult to get past that initial, you have to defend yourself for believing in blank. Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna bring it around to our larger culture, because I'm very troubled right now watching people who are Muslim having to be oh no, but I'm a good Muslim. It's okay. You don't have to worry about me. The fact that it has to go in that direction at all is disturbing. Mm-hmm. People should be able to believe whatever the hell they want to believe. I really don't care.
Well, see, here's my thing. I've watched plenty of the Atheist Experience, and I've watched plenty of Talk Heathen, which, by the way, Talk Heathen is a fabulous show. Y'all check that out.
It is indeed.
But anyway, I've watched plenty of them, and one thing that I always hear people on Talk Heathen and people on Atheist Experience say that I very much agree with is that you do not choose your beliefs; you are convinced of them. And I tend to look at sexuality as basically the same type of deal. You don't choose what it is you're interested in. You just, you act on whatever it is you're attracted to.
Yeah, and I think that's true. And when we're talking about orientation, there are so many different factors and so many different things that make it tricky to really put your finger on. I mean, there is no gay gene. I mean, life is simply not that simple. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that your orientation isn't strongly tied to your genetics. But just like everything else, your genetics are only part of the equation. I mean, we don't entirely understand whether your orientation is affected by hormones in the womb. We don't entirely understand if it's affected by early childhood experiences, but what we overwhelmingly recognize is that it's not a choice, and that it's a combination of a number of different factors that have generally settled themselves within the first couple of years of life. So very few, if anybody, has ever just been magically struck at the age of 60 and suddenly become gay because of their frigid mother or whatever other stupid explanation is trendy that week.
Although it might seem like that for a lot of people on the outside, if that person has been in the closet for so long, it could very easily. And I know that this is a thing that a lot of people are talking about. In the trans community, especially, a lot of parents who don't understand are thinking that, it's a trend thing, that their kids are coming out now all of a sudden, but the world has become more accepting of that. So a lot of the time it can seem like a choice, especially if you know a person before they come out and they haven't been fully themselves all the time because they didn't either feel safe or feel comfortable. But yeah, as somebody who does identify as queer, it is just a part of who I am. This is what natural is to me,
One thing that I would raise a question of, to people who think that it is a choice, we live in a society, I'm pretty sure, at least the majority of the society, that, if you're gay, if you're lesbian or whatever, or if you know anybody who is, people tend to look down on that as if it's wrong or a sin or whatever religious people may want to call it. And for people who think that you choose to be that way, if you grow up in a fundamentalist household or anything remotely close to that, my question is, why would you choose something that could get you ostracized from your family, something that could make your family disown you, or just something that could put you in an overall bad situation?
Exactly. That's a good question.
I think that's overwhelmingly true. There is just no reason to really support that. And I think that that V has it right, that as we become more comfortable with these things as a society, we're going to see less of that sort of like sudden, late in life coming out experience, which isn't to say that our sexuality can't be fluid and sort of changing in these various ways, but to suggest that people are just going out and waking up one day deciding like a new haircut that they're going to dramatically change this important part of their lives just isn't substantiated.
I also want to add like that I think that largely like what we should try to strive to in culture is to recognize that these choices are largely irrelevant. Like even if someone wants to do that, like when they're 60 years old, they just want to decide to go to only men. Cool, respect that decision. Like, why do you have to make it a big deal anyway? It has no effect on you.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, regardless of where it's coming from.
Yeah, I would say that's one thing that, because of the culture we live in, you want to fight back against the discrimination, against all the hate that we have to endure because we see things differently. But I would have to agree, if whatever your orientation is, I don't understand, just like he said, why other people have to be worried about it so much, because, it's not like I'm impacting you with it, right?
It's none of their business.
Exactly.
And, I am a bisexual male, and, I'm married, 2 wonderful kids, and, my wife is fully supportive of me. And the way I tend to look at it is this. For one thing, when it comes to your sexuality, I believe your attraction is whatever arouses you, if that makes any sense. And, as long as you're being safe with what you're doing and you're not harming anybody and you're doing it the right way, I don't see a problem with it, because the thing about it is, where people are getting these arguments from for why they think it's wrong is coming from a source that they still have yet to demonstrate any truth of.
Right. I do have something to add that kind of ties the 2 questions together, if that's okay. So I don't want to conflate BDSM or fetishes with being a queer person. You can be a queer person and not want to participate in BDSM.
Vanilla.
Be kinky. Right. Yeah, you can be vanilla queer. That's totally fine. But it does really tie into this, because a lot of people assume at Forbidden Fruit it's mostly straight women that come to shop with us. We have all genders. We have all races. We have all different types of religious backgrounds. Most of the population is interested in sex in some capacity. There are asexual people, but some of them still masturbate. So it's something to think about. It's none of their business unless they're popping the balloons with you or getting spanked by your paddle. But I fully agree with you.
That's like that. That's like what I've heard. That's like what I've heard Christy say before, and I've heard Megan say this too. And I absolutely love this saying. I've used it myself after hearing them say it. How did y'all say it? Your kink is not my kink, but your kink is okay.
Oh yeah, one of the very famous Dan Savageisms.
Yes.
I absolutely love that. I've actually called into the show once before, and I've watched it a couple times. I absolutely love what y'all are doing, but I just wanted to get y'all's thoughts on that, see what y'all thought about that.
Okay, well, yeah, glad to hear it. I really appreciate you checking in with us. We do have a couple other folks on the line, but thank you so much for bringing that up, because I feel like it's really kind of a foundational question right now in this time and age.
It really is. People need to really understand, like, where this is coming from and what the truth of the matter really is, because as Matt Dillahunty has pointed out before, we need to care about knowing as many true things as possible and as few false things. We can't just worry about what's comfortable.
Right.
Yeah, well said. Well, thank you so much. You have a great night.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for that. Thank you for your time. Y'all have a great night.
Absolutely.
Too.
All right. Well, yeah, we're having fun. We're cooking already. We've got a couple of folks on the line that, if you're listening, we would love to get to what you have to say, and we'll definitely make time for it. But I would hate to go any further down this road without seeing some of the fun stuff that y'all brought in for us.
Okay. I want to do the flogger last.
Okay.
You want to start with your paddles?
Sure. So a lot of the stuff which I do can be done pretty quickly and easily. A lot of it comes down to just patience.
So this right here is something that you've made yourself.
Yeah. Now, there's a few YouTube channels that I love watching whenever it comes to, like, learning woodworking. I don't know if I can plug in.
Yeah, throw some shout-outs and again, we'll throw some links up as well.
There's one called Woodworking for Mere Mortals, and what's really important about it, he's hilarious. He has a website where it literally says for less than $1,000 you can set up a workshop. The big thing to woodworking is the hurdle of price and the equipment. There's things that you can do things better with, but you can essentially get by with a very short list of tools. For these, you essentially need a jigsaw at the low end, bandsaw at the higher end. With this one, you need like a drill or a drill press. But largely, it's essentially just a bandsaw or a jigsaw and a whole bunch of sandpaper.
Okay.
It really is just like you cut this thing out and you sit there for 3 hours sanding it.
Imagine you have to sand pretty carefully for these things.
Again, splinters, very concerning. Okay, so walk us through, maybe for folks who aren't familiar, you're drilling these holes, you're creating this pattern. What are the holes for? What is that accomplishing?
A lot of it is like gonna get into physics between objects right here.
Okay.
So,
again, liberal arts major, talk for a living.
Yeah.
Dumb it down for me.
So I'll start with like wood grain. You can think of it like if you look above like a forest, you have small things sticking up.
Sure.
The idea of sandpaper is you're kind of getting those down to like a fine level. The sandpaper has grit to it. If the grit of your sandpaper cannot reach the grooves of the next level, then you have to go in order to get the really, really fine shine. So you have to go from 80 to 150 to 220 in order to get deep enough to smooth it out.
Okay.
And then so what that does is that the less grit that you have sticking up, the closer which it can get at a very, very, very small level to the point of contact.
To the skin.
Yeah.
Right.
And
So basically we're taking something that has like all these, under a microscope, nooks and crannies and valleys, and we're just flattening it down to like a true plane.
yes.
And you're going to fill this one in, I think you said. But sometimes people will drill holes in it and finish it out that way because it'll go faster.
Yeah.
And therefore be more painful.
Yeah.
Go faster, meaning there's less drag and you're able to get
Exactly.
more momentum on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, for our true spankos, you want something that is flying through the air at a good speed.
Right.
Furthermore, like a lot like the concept of like you can lie down on a bed of nails because there's so many nails. If you decrease the amount of points of contact, that increases the pain sensation.
Oh, interesting.
Right.
So by punching in holes, you also limit the amount that's actually coming in contact, which means that there's a larger amount of force going into a smaller area.
So if we use this one, it would be, and I don't know if y'all can see it, it's pretty large and it's decently wide.
It seems more intimidating on its face than the small white one.
This one would be more ouchy. That's my technical
More
term.
ouchy.
If
Okay.
we left the holes in it in particular, but you have really cool designs. I'm excited to see how you finish that one out. And another answer to a question you asked me earlier is, why am I trying to put myself out of business at Forbidden Fruit? And we actually sell handmade toys in the shop. So we sell a lot of Andy's paddles. We sell my rattan canes. And a lot of our leather gear is handmade locally. We do order from other companies, like you mentioned, Mr. S. So some of these items, unless you want to throw down a couple thousand, like Andy was saying, to make your own paddles, you can just buy a handmade one by a local artist.
Yeah. And we actually took a tour of the store and have some pretty good video of all of Andy's paddles and a number of other great things. So I'd invite anybody who's curious and wants to see a greater selection than what you've got here. Of course, check out forbiddenfruit.com, come into the store, but also go ahead and take a look at the episode that we did with Johnny and the tour that we took. It was a really good time.
That sounds really fun.
Yeah, he's a storyteller. I definitely recommend that episode to anybody curious.
And paddles are used primarily for impact. So back, bottom, back of thigh is the safer place to use it. Other people use them in different places with more training. I kind of want to go through a little bit more of the stuff that you can just find around your house.
Yeah.
But when it comes to handmade things, there's beautiful local artists if you don't want to learn yourself, or you can become one of the people we buy from. That would be cool.
I have a question about the hairbrush.
Okay.
Because we were talking a little bit before we went on air, and my family had that exact hairbrush growing up, so I'm getting nostalgia, but also I'm excited to see how you guys are going to use that, so I have all of the questions.
Okay. So this is one of the things, and I actually...
Very curious about your nostalgia. I may have to ask you off air.
This is one of the things that I actually sent my girlfriend to go get one from the dollar store today because I didn't want to use a brush that I've been using on other people. There are some toys I keep as demo toys and some toys that I play with myself or on other people. So I like to talk about how people use brushes penetratively. This one would not be ideal, which is why I brought it today, because it has more texture. It would be much more difficult to clean. You could throw a condom on it, but there's no guarantee that that texture is going to be beneficial to you.
So again, all those nooks and crannies and valleys are where bacteria are living and growing and, causing all kinds of other problems.
And it might not be body safe to insert, so if you do insert something like a brush, make sure it's got a handle to hold on to on this side. So this is kind of flared. So in theory, you could, if it was smoother, put a condom on it. You could throw away the condom
It's really just a
later.
great tagline. I mean, if you're going to put it inside of you, put a condom on it.
Did y'all watch Portlandia? It
Yes.
was like put a bird on it, but
Oh,
put a
yeah.
condom on it.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I just popped into my head. But also, I really like brushes for sensation play. So you can drag it across someone's skin. You could brush their hair. That can be hot as well. And you can also use it for a spanky if you don't want to throw down for a paddle and you want to see if you like something a little bit more intense than a hand.
Yeah, something to walk into without, necessarily going whole hog with that giant club.
And this was $1. And you can brush hair with it. I would recommend, like, if you use it as a
Maybe
sex
two.
toy, maybe two. But, if you try, like, a couple swats and they're like, nope, then just give it to them as a hairbrush. We're good. And then another one is a metal ruler. This is very mean.
I think it's scary.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the
just
size?
not to mention the I guess role play aspect and some of the other components. I mean, there's the practical, literal sense of this is what can be used for. But yeah, if you want to incorporate some of these things, it does harken back to grade school or these other scenes
the
or things.
teacher fantasy.
Yeah.
Right. I'm into it. Totally. And then you can also use something like this for sensation play because if someone's laying down and drag it across their skin, it's cold. You can stick it in a cup of ice, which is also in your freezer already.
Right. Would it make sense if someone was blindfolded and maybe wasn't comfortable with knife play yet to kind of, enter into that area with something less dangerous than?
As long as they know it's not a knife. But I have also told people who are interested in knife play that I was going to do it and used this. So I blindfold them and they think it's a knife, but it's actually not a knife at all because sometimes I want to make sure that the bottom is going to stay still for something like that.
Right. No, that's always good to know ahead of time.
Yeah. And then, do you have anything else to add about impact, Andy?
I mean, you touched on it a little bit. Like, be aware of what you're using and where you're hitting. Like, can you hand me the big red one?
Yes.
I haven't. I totally want to keep this one. I don't want to sell it, but
Yeah, it really is a gorgeous piece.
if you put your hand on it, this thing literally feels like an Incan weapon of war. So
I can totally see myself like at Thanksgiving serving a cheese board on it,
Right.
So be very careful about where you store these things when relatives come over for the holidays.
But it's
Right.
like if you hit someone in like the rib cage with something that weighs that much,
Yes,
you can do some significant damage.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
so, it's just like if you're hitting something with objects. I always like to tell people like with like rope and with impact play is we do this to the people that we love because we love them.
Right.
Like be aware of like how much damage something can cause. Like a lot of like floggers, a lot of people will say like hit the upper back or like the shoulders, avoid the kidneys, like
Right.
and things like that. And a lot of that is just knowledge of the body, knowledge of anatomy and things like that, and just try not to hurt someone or break a rib.
Yeah, and
We want to
just
hurt them, not harm them.
Yeah, and just a good reminder that, Forbidden Fruit offers more than the class that y'all are teaching. I mean,
yes.
all kinds of different ways. And whether you're here in Austin, whether you're going to Forbidden Fruit or, joining a local kink community and going to munches and these different trainings at play parties, just making sure that you know what you're doing before you stick your neck out there, I guess.
Yeah, do some research. And there are body maps online where it shows parts of the body that are more vulnerable. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. But
Yeah,
kidneys
people
and
have
colon-
been hitting each other while fucking each other for a very long time. They've made all the mistakes so that we don't have to. It's the information age. Go out there and get you some.
Please.
Okay, well, with that, before we figure out what the hell all of this duct tape is for, I wanted to jump again on the phones and talk very quickly to Kathleen. Hey, Kathleen, thank you so much for holding. What's on your mind tonight?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I called. I kind of got prodded by some members of the Atheist Community of Austin to call in.
Okay, great.
Well, thank you so much.
I'm like the neighborhood Christian transsexual, and I don't know. They thought this would be a good place for me to call in and maybe talk about Christian sexuality with you guys from a positive standpoint, and maybe as opposed to an evangelical bashing standpoint.
Sure. I mean, did you have a particular question for us or anything in particular that you wanted to make sure to share?
Well, there was the caller before was talking about, that sex and fundamentalism and kink don't very well mix together, I think was kind of the essence of what he's saying. And I'm sure you've had people call in before and maybe bash what you guys are doing. I mean, I'm looking at the screen right now and there's, dildos and paddles and everything all over the place. And, of course, I'm a big fan of all that. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know. I wasn't sure. I didn't really call in with anything to talk about. Other than to say, there are Christians out there that are, LGBT, that are smart enough to realize that the evangelical kind of power thing that is over sex is unhealthy. It's not Christian. Sex is supposed to be healthy.
Well, sure, but let me just interrupt you very briefly. We tend not to debate much on this show just because of the trauma that folks have generally experienced within the queer community and related to sex. So with a sensitivity towards that, I would only suggest that when you say something is not Christian, that's a very tricky thing to define because Christianity is a big umbrella that a lot of people say a lot of different things about. What I would say definitively is that the Bible does clearly say that. When we're talking about Christianity being queer accepting or okay with LGBTQ plus folks, we have to recognize that whether Christianity or Jesus or whoever you are choosing to identify as falling under that Christian label, that the Bible does specifically say in multiple places, Old Testament, New, etc., that it's not acceptable for men to have sex with men or for women to have sex with women. And so I think that's an important distinction to just throw out there, but I do want to let you continue.
Well, so I guess if I had a question, my question would be something to the effect of, since you guys have a show about secularism and sexuality, how can someone from like my side, who is LGBT but also identifies as a Christian, kind of almost, I guess, bridge the gap to say that, there are people like me out there who want you to be able to be sex positive, to be able to, do what it is that makes you feel good and happy and safe. Because one of the things that I think I notice the most is that I get bashed on, for not only being transsexual, but for being a member of, the kink community at large, going to FetLife parties in my local area. And on the reverse, my kind of, like the kind of people that I know in my life kind of turn around and bash anybody who does that isn't Christian. So I'm curious if you think there's like a way to bridge the gap almost.
That's a really good question. I have many, many Christian friends, who are in the same position that you are. One of my friends is, she's married to her wife, and they are both Methodist ministers right now. They just got ordained. They're so excited, and they're very visible. And I think, well, first of all, calling into a show like this is extremely helpful, and we love hearing these different perspectives, especially from, our friends who are Christian, and also, sex positive. I think a lot of it has to do with if you feel safe enough to be visible to your community, please do. If you don't feel safe, if this is not a time or a place where you feel like you can come out and be 100% who you are, then that takes precedence, of course. But if your question is, how do I show that we exist? I would say the best way to do that is to exist safely, but also proudly and also loudly.
And I do have a suggestion, and I touched on it a little bit, but at Forbidden Fruit, we have all genders, all races, people who are Christian, people who are atheist, people who are witches, everything. So there are definitely people that are Christian and kinky and sexual and trans and queer. Or are you familiar with FetLife? There are groups on FetLife about Christians who are trans or or kinky. There's a whole group.
I'm on FetLife.
Yeah,
I
look it up.
That was like quite a bit.
Yeah, look it up. There are groups about it, and I know some people who are monogamous and kinky and go to church. So you have to do a little bit more digging, because I agree people might not feel safe. But on FetLife, you don't have to post a picture of yourself. You can just go chat with people.
Something which I always like to mention to people, because I have a lot of friends in the kink community in Austin who are Christians and who are practicing and go to church all the time. And it's what I pretty much have always been an atheist as long as I've really cared anything about religion. But it's that Christianity excels at creating a community, which I think that some people find that incredibly valuable. Mm-hmm. And I'm a firm believer in just respecting other people's beliefs. And if you can practice whatever belief that you have and feel proud of who you are and everything like that, then I think that that's all that's really important. I don't believe that any group has the ability to knock you down a peg, make you feel bad about who you are, unless you give that power to them. And I think that that's something that's really important. And it goes back to like what I said earlier with the previous caller, where it's just, where's the relevance to like your belief compared to mine? If you have your belief and you feel happy and proud of that belief, and that belief gives you that community, that comfort, that whatever you believe has that belief, then I'm proud that you have that belief, and then that belief gives you strength.
Yeah, when I read the Bible, and, there's lots of sex in the Bible, obviously, and I think one of the most beautiful examples of human sexuality is found in the Bible in the Song of Psalms. And most people don't even know what that is. But it's a beautiful work of poetry about falling in love and getting married and things like that. What I've tried to somewhat explain to people that share my beliefs is that it appears to me, at least, that the Bible kind of expresses this idea that sexuality is supposed to be good. And when I say good, it's that if you have people engaging in sexual activity where there's no harm occurring, where it's consensual, then that is what we are meant to be engaging in. What I see the Bible telling me not to do is engage in acts where there is no consent, where it is harmful to someone emotionally, physically, psychologically, and that we're supposed to have those conversations with people prior to engaging in those acts.
I love that description, and I would love to live in a world where that was what the Bible said. But I guess I just have to step in again and point out that the Bible is full of places that include non-consensual sex, at least as we understand consent in a sophisticated modern era. And it also, when you're talking about it describing, healthy, good sex versus bad, destructive sex, it in many places refers to same-sex attraction or interactions as being that unhealthy, bad, negative thing. And so, again, I just have to point out that while everything you're saying sounds really lovely, it's not supported by the actual text that you're saying it came from.
Well, I think that's just going to be one of those things where we would just have to agree to disagree on that.
It's only so many pages. I'm not going to badger you about it any further, but I'd encourage you to read those pages because everything I'm saying is pretty easily found.
Yeah, I know the arguments for and against. I guess generally speaking, what I'm more interested in is that I hold these beliefs. I was an atheist most of my life. I now hold my Christian beliefs. But my goal has always been to see, I've always looked at atheists, agnostics, which is pagans, basically anybody that's, doesn't hold to some kind of orthodox religion. It's kind of a gift to me because you guys do good things without having to be told to do them. You're not worried about eternal damnation for your actions or things like that, where we're kind of worried about those things. And Christians talk a lot about sex in a very negative manner. And it's been difficult for me to kind of engage, especially in like a church setting, to kind of broach these topics of, hey, these people are good people and they're doing good things and we shouldn't be judging them. And so that's why I actually joined into the Atheist Community of Austin, was to try to kind of maybe bridge the gap a little bit. So I like I said, I kind of wanted to call in a little bit, just kind of say hello. I've enjoyed watching the show up to this point. I'm going to continue to watch.
Glad to hear it.
And that was really my main question, is just to maybe get some advice on, how I can better serve the atheist community as a Christian.
Well, I would suggest one last thing would be to perhaps schedule some kind of Bible study where you read the Song of Solomon to other Christians and maybe surprise them with that. Just introduce them to maybe a part of their text that they don't read as often.
It's a great
Yeah, get some raised eyebrows on that one.
Yeah, I believe that to be true. In any case,
I appreciate you taking my call.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much,
we do
Jesse.
appreciate you being part of the community and for just checking in with us.
You guys have a wonderful night.
Take care.
As well.
You too.
What's
Amazing.
Well, I'm glad to hear it from her. I'm glad to hear different perspectives and to just know that there are folks within the church that do have a respect for the decency of other people and wanting to be considerate towards that.
Right. I think it's so telling that the Bible can be used to justify any mindset. And it
Different
tells you the
perspective, sure,
only
yeah.
thing that anyone quoting the Bible or any other religious text really tells you is about that person. And Kathleen seems like an amazing person because of the way that the biblical interpretation is for them. But yeah, it's interesting because it's basically a blank canvas, and you can project whatever it is that you want onto it.
There are many versions.
Exactly.
It's been written and rewritten a lot of times.
Did you know that the King James Version, which is the one that most fundamentalists and evangelicals like, was written by a bisexual person?
That's a really interesting fact.
Yep, King James was bi. So not many people know that or excited to know that.
I always I think that the Bible is a great guide for like how you should treat people. Aspects of it are, aspects of it are not. At the same time, like if someone comes to you and starts gay bashing because like the Bible says blank, I'll bet you money that they eat bacon. Like
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's you take from it what you want, and if you want to use it as an object to beat people, you're going to grab anything in your reach to do that because that's just the type of person that you are.
It's just like your paddles. It's an instrument, and you can choose to either, bring it to the table in love or break a rib by accident.
People actually have made paddles out of Bibles and use it ironically or unironically.
See, that I would buy.
Yeah, I'll
Depending on
definitely
their-
take one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Start work on that.
May need to mention that in the workshop. That actually sounds like a pretty good time.
I'll see if my friend can bring his that he made. Sometimes it devolves into kinky show and tell. So if anyone watching this does come to our workshop next week and you made something neat that you feel safe to bring out into public, maybe someone hasn't used it yet, or it's in a Ziploc baggie, please come show us.
Wrapped in plastic, but bring it
Yes.
from home.
Please think about that. Did you want to get into the flogger?
Yeah, let me grab one more call,
Okay.
and then I'd love to see your flogger. Yeah, that's a sentence I
What
just
was
said.
that?
I like it. I stand by that. Okay, this is the career path I've chosen. Sorry, Mom. Adam, we would love to hear from you real quickly. What's on your mind tonight?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking my call. It really made my day. I appreciate it. Before I get into my point, I just want to say all the shows and the people on your network, Secular Sexuality, Atheist Experience, Talk Heathen, I just want to say you guys are all doing something so monumentally important, and I just want to say I have immense respect for all of you. So, yeah, so just to
Yeah, I
say
appreciate
that before
that.
I
Thank
get into
you.
my actual point.
Sure,
Yeah, like I absolute respect. So what I want to talk to you guys about is, so I am a cis straight man,
Mhm.
and I have a certain, sexual preference, like as anyone does. And the thing is, I have this like weird hang up and guiltiness about it.
Mm.
So when it comes to BDSM, I don't give a crap about the B or the M.
Mm-hmm.
I like the D and the S.
Yeah, domination.
So
So are we talking about domination and submission in this case? Or are we talking about sadism? Depends on how we do it.
no. So every letter of the acronym has like a double meaning,
Right?
which is what makes it so great.
Yeah, the
But
two in the
no,
middle.
So I am. Sorry. Yeah. So I am into the dominance and submission,
Mm-hmm.
and so basically, what I like is I like to just dominate and control women sexually,
Mm-hmm.
consensually. I always make sure we are always 100% on the same page and that we have a safe word, everything. But like that's what I like. Like I like just like dominating women, like using them basically as
Mhm.
sexual objects if they want that to happen,
Right.
which we discuss.
Exactly.
So, right. So my point is, I feel guilty about it because it makes me feel like I'm like deep down I'm like a chauvinist or a misogynist.
Mm-hmm.
That's a valid point of view. I know many people on the other side of that, many women who enjoy being subjugated and being submissive, who also feel that discomfort of, am I playing into a stereotype? Am I playing into, a sexist role play thing that, is maybe harmful?
Am I not a feminist
Right,
if I allow a
exactly.
man to tie me up or to do these things?
Right. And the thing that really,
Right. And I run into that all the time.
and if you're having these
Sorry,
conversations
sorry,
with
not
your...
trying to interrupt.
No, not a problem at all. If you're having these conversations with your subs, then that's amazing already that you guys are being that open and vulnerable with each other.
Not even really subs, though. It's just when I like to engage in sexual activities with women, that's what I like to do.
They don't necessarily have
It's
to
not
be
really
submissive
like a formal,
women.
Sorry.
No, I'm trying to clarify. So they don't necessarily have to be submissive women. You just like to dominate them, which is a thing. Correct?
yes, I make sure that they want to be dominated first, like before. Yeah.
Of course, but
yes,
there are some people that don't identify as submissive but like to be dominated because it's the power struggle. They like to maybe fight for it.
Yeah, and instead of maybe a compliant slave or these different roles. I mean, these are all silly fantasies. I mean, that's part of what we do here is take some of the like. It's great to go into a dungeon and the whips and chains and the heaviness and the darkness of it all, but really it is silly on its face. I mean, it's all it's role play, it's play acting, it's fairy tales, it's cops and robbers with your pants off.
And if it's just in the bedroom, that's true. But as someone that's a femdom, I'm in charge of all my partners in life and in the bedroom. I do switch a little bit with other switchy people, but I tend to lean on the dominant side. Nothing is more feminist than allowing a woman the choice of being dominated or being the dominant party. Right. There's nothing more feminist than letting women make their own choices for themselves.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I guess I don't know. I just can't shake this feeling of like, I don't know, like I said before, being like a misogynist, because you guys, I just called into the show right now. You guys are the only ones I've ever like talked to about this in my life. I can't even talk to my best friends about this, because if I did, they would just say like, I'm a misogynist.
Yeah.
So it's like,
well, it makes sense to me that you're feeling these feelings of shame or guilt because you haven't talked to anybody about them. I mean, I understand that it's a chicken and an egg situation, because we do live in a culture where there's reason to feel uncomfortable. There's pressure coming from the outside that would stop you from really sharing these feelings or discussing these experiences with people. At the same time, one of the best ways to combat that shame is to do what's uncomfortable, is to talk to people, and finding people who are like-minded, people who are sex positive and receptive. A great place to start is jumping on FetLife and finding your local kink community, whether you're discussing this with people online or going out to munches or joining play parties or these different things. By actually having these conversations, by going through the motions of it more than just once with us, but actually time and time again, discussing these things in a comfortable, open way, that exposure is going to do a lot to erase that shame and to make you feel like you're not the only one, because let me tell you, you're not.
You're not.
Guaranteed. That is a very, very common concern. And also, just to reiterate something we talked about early on in the show, there is no morality inherent in what you're attracted to and what turns you on. Like, there's nothing, it's an amoral thing. It's not good or bad. There's no morality attached to it. The only question of morality comes in, and how do you act on that, and is it consensual, and are you being respectful to the other person, and are you making sure that you aren't harming them? And if those criteria are met and both people are into it, then it's fine. It's absolutely fine.
And I think that it's
I always
important.
make sure all of that criteria is met. You guys are based in Austin, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Atheist Community of Austin.
I'm in a little random town in Maine. Like, I don't exactly have the same amount of resources that you guys have for this test. Not trying to like play the victim or whatever.
I definitely hear that. I mean, I came from a small town myself, and one of the reasons I settled here in Austin is because it's a little bit trickier to be whatever all of this is in the place where I came from. So I definitely hear that, but I do know that there are resources available to you. I mean, if you're watching this show now, then I understand you have access to the internet, you have access to a phone, you have opportunities to be meeting people, whether it's in person or online. I won't pretend that it's perfect. I won't pretend that it's anywhere near as glorious as being in this wonderful city. But I do believe that there are people that you can get into community with, even if that's just joining the ACA Discord or Facebook group, or spending more time with Us Damn Heathens.
And you'd be surprised if you poke around online. I used to live in a small town in East Texas, and we actually had a BDSM group there. So I would search your city, or search the closest largest city if you're willing to drive an hour or two, because there's a lot more than you'd think.
Wherever there's people, there are kinky people.
Exactly.
And
I've tried to find that before, and I don't know. It's just kind of failed every single time. I don't know. I just feel isolated, and I just don't feel like I can express honestly my feelings with other people without fear of being judged. Even though I really don't really care that much about being judged. I've always been my own guy. I do whatever I want, but just being labeled as, you know, a bigoted person just based on the particular sexuality that you have, it weighs on me and it hurts me. And that's why I called you guys today.
Yeah, and it sounds like this is a fairly deep-seated concern. And I think that's very human and very reasonable in the climate that you're existing in. So it might be something to spend some time diving into with a good kink-informed, sex-positive therapist. So you might take a look at resources like ASECT, the American Association of Sexuality Educators, Counselors, and Therapists.
They're
Always so terrified I'm going to mess that up.
Yes.
Yeah, that's AASECT. Yeah.
I didn't know about that.
ASEC.org, as well as the Secular Therapy Project. And, you know, we've definitely talked about those on this show before, but I'll throw up some links as well. Those are great places to start to find somebody that can help walk you through these things and maybe even help find, you know, local resources and opportunities.
And one last thought, if you're worried and if it's causing you this much hurt and pain that you might be a misogynist, you're not. I think if you care this much about that issue, I think you're okay.
That's, I guess, kind of on a baseline instinct. That's kind of why I was calling into this show, just to get validation of that.
Sure.
So I'm not going to, like, apply higher than mighty and say I wasn't doing that. So I appreciate that. That makes me feel a lot better. I also appreciate you guys giving me all those resources, which...
Yeah, I hope that you'll check it out, and I hope it works out, and I hope that you'll let us know. You know, feel free to give us a call back, or even just shoot us an email and let us know. You might find there's a great community there. Say that again?
Sorry. When do you guys do call-ins to your show?
We're here every Thursday at 7, Central Standard.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right, cool. So you're a once-a-week show?
Yes, sir.
It'll be 8 o'clock for you.
Yeah.
That's very helpful.
Thank you so much, everyone. Again, I just want to repeat, I respect and admire all of you because I think that what you're doing is so important. It's just so important. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thanks for calling.
You know, I think that it's important to recognize that all of us have in our hearts some level of distrust of others, you know, some level of aspects of racism, aspects of homophobia, or just concerns about people who are different than us. I think that lives in us, in each of us to some degree. But you're right. If somebody is that concerned and they really do care about these issues, that's a really good sign that they're maybe not the monster that they think of themselves as.
Exactly. Also, just something to think about, and this is something that I've been kind of mulling over. A lot of women who enjoy submission are operating in a society where they are told they cannot enjoy sex, that if they have sex, if they want to go out and get sex, then they're a slut, or that they are somehow lesser. And so for a lot of women, being able to let go and say, I'm going to be a sub in this moment, psychologically, it's easier to then enjoy it simply because there's not that stigma of, oh, well, you are going after this yourself. And it's an unfortunate thing that it has to be that way, I think. And I mean, granted, this isn't every sub, but I think that probably plays into it a little bit. What do you guys think?
I've heard that before. I know that you top sometimes. Do you wanna?
Yeah, I mean, coming from another cisgendered white male, I do both top and I also bottom. I tend to more bottom than top, but a a lot of it is like everyone has to deal with things that we worry that we might be like doing wrong or going against a stereotype or anything like that. I know I've got them. Like I think largely it's important to know like that everyone that you talk to is just as insecure and weak as yourself. And I think that is a really powerful like thing to think about. It's where like you worry about these things in your life and everyone else is worrying about the hundreds of things in their life. And it's like, I know whenever I'm topping, I sometimes like have trouble being like a very mean person because I don't want to like hurt the person or like I don't like, and part of that's like my personality and part of that's because I care enough to like have the hesitation before blank. Also, like whenever I'm doming, a lot of the time when I'm really having a good fun is pushing the emotional boundary of someone that I'm extremely close with. And it can be difficult to find that edge without going over it. And something which is like really important is that that person knows that you are there. Right. Once you've gone back from that edge, you're going to be there to get them back to that normal emotional state. And it's taking that time. And I also find that battling with guilt of your situation is something which can be difficult to balance those two. Because like oftentimes whenever you're finished like really like hard doming like you, and it's something which you then feel like you have to deal with those demons in your own self, which then detracts from your ability to taking care of what just happened to the person who you're topping.
Yeah, don't forget your aftercare, I think is the big takeaway.
And this just proves again that not only is it subs that need aftercare, a lot of dominants need aftercare too. They want reassurance that you didn't go too far.
Right.
Yeah.
So take care of yourselves and have a plan before it's over. And I have some partners that don't do what's called a drop when they start to feel bad until 3 days later. It's the way their brain chemistry works. Know enough about yourself and communicate enough with your partners to actually have that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we have one more caller on the line, but before we do that, I have to know what is up with this duct tape flogger.
Okay, so one of the first toys I ever made was a flogger out of duct tape, actually at a local women's only kink party that was a crafting group. So
that is perhaps the most Austin statement I've ever heard in my life.
So at this crafting group, there were people that were doing wax play, which is like dripping hot wax on someone into cute little designs, like a butterfly on someone's vulva. And it was actually
how delightful.
It was adorable.
So charming.
Basically doing staples on someone and making a dream catcher on their back and things like that. But it was the first time I hung out with one of my closest friends. We've been friends for a few years now. And she and I thought it would be really fun to try to make a duct tape flogger. And Andy has a lot of experience with messing with duct tape, but he hasn't made a duct tape flogger before. I sort of got started with it before the show happened because this is definitely one of those toys that if you make it for someone, it belongs to the person that you're spanking it with. Now, a flogger tends to be something that has multiple falls. They're typically made out of leather materials, sometimes fabric, and it's many strings on a handle of some sort. So these are my strings. It is a piece of duct tape that's folded 3 ways. Can you see this, y'all? Do you want
to give me
hold
one
it
of your
up?
strings? Yeah.
Might be my Vanna White here.
Yeah.
So I did make a few, and then I was going to show
so this
Andy.
Is, you're rolling out the duct tape, you're tearing it, and then just kind of folding it in on itself?
And I'm folding it 3 times. That way there's only one edge, because I know you know about duct tape, eventually it will get sticky on the edge of it. So this kind of makes it a little bit heavier if it's folded 3 ways, and also there's only one edge to get sticky. You were talking about how you made the wallets, where you essentially make fabric and then cut it. This is just one edge. I tried it that way, and it got sticky way more quickly, and I had to get another one. And I fashioned what's going to be my little loop handle. I have made them before, just the same thing, but taped together. I have made one before that was actually a dowel. You can use like an old dried out marker and cover it in duct tape if you want. So really any garbage you have laying around your house that can make a handle will work.
And if you do choose to buy your dowels at Hobby Lobby, I hope that you tell them specifically what they're for.
Right. So I'm going to make a few more and show you how to put it together. This one's not going to have a hard handle in it.
Mm-hmm.
You can make them huge. You can make them really large. My favorite size to make out of duct tape with the handle and the falls all together is about this big, but I have a friend who made one that's like, I'll go off camera with my arms. So get as creative as you'd like.
We got some ASMR going on here.
Yeah, our sound engineer loves it when you do that. It's great. Oh, yeah. That's the tingles.
I can do it closer if you want.
Now, while Megan is doing this, you're gonna see the tape getting folded over.
Mm-hmm.
You can keep in mind, like, you can load this with something on the striking end.
Oh, goodness.
If you really want to be a dick.
Put your Hot Wheels at the end there.
Yeah, you can put Hot Wheels.
You can. But what did you
Wheels
mention?
are better on the end of the
Fishing
flogger
weights?
Right, rather than
in
up your
other
butt.
places, yes.
Yeah.
Fishing weights are largely inexpensive and come in a myriad of sizes. So yeah, you could just like toss like fishing weight, like lead shot.
We just thought about this right before we fell, so.
While it was being built, we came up with this. What are other things? BBs? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, that would make good sense.
Little pellets, bottle caps. would
Yeah.
work.
Oh my God, bottle caps is brutal. That would take flesh out.
And this is one of the, because we've actually done this class, gosh, I want to say 4 or 5 times. I do it almost every summer. In the summer at Forbidden Fruit, all of our classes are free. They're a little bit shorter, and they're kind of just a taste of what we teach.
Sorts of things y'all offer.
Yeah, so this is my favorite freebie that I do every year, and people will come to one year and come back and bring something more elaborate that they've made themselves. But we also teach other workshops. Andy does rope workshops for sometimes, and we're coming out with our our fall schedule. Excuse me. Pretty soon. So this next workshop that's next week at 7 o'clock on Thursday. So you'll have to watch this after the recording. I'm sorry.
We will understand. You can go ahead
It's
and
very
send your
supportive.
questions in via email.
That's very supportive. That's the last freebie of the summer, and then we're going to move into our fall season, and we're looking at options now. There are rumblings of a cuddling is only class.
Oh.
Did you want to make a fall?
Sure.
Want to try? Okay. Here.
Okay.
A cuddling is only class, or a strap-on sex workshop, which I've done in the past, and we almost always do anal and oral because everyone loves
wants
anal
to
and
know.
oral.
Yeah.
So we cover
Needs
lots
to
of
know what
different
they're
things.
I'm butchering this.
Now, I'm very curious how this is going to work out, because when I think of a leather strap and, just holding that duct tape in my hand, I'm not feeling like there's enough force behind it to really do anything. But you don't strike me as somebody who would be doing this if it wasn't going to work.
Right. So the more falls you have, it's the same rule that Andy talked about earlier. Thank you. Same rules Andy talked about. The smaller it is, the more of a sting.
Okay.
And the larger it is, the more of like a thud or a pop. So if I
So
added,
thin rather than broad, basically.
right, if I added a whole bundle of them, it would feel more like a massage almost.
Oh, okay.
Because it is duct tape, you still get that little sting regardless, which
Uh-huh.
is sort of nice about it. But there's many ways to do it. You could also, and I'm not going to do it this time, but I could also just pop it on the end of this,
Sure.
and I'd have a longer handle.
Now, while Megan does this, I'll explain something which I've done in the past. This is super cheap. You can go around to bike shops in your area and you can ask them like if they have it, like just a bucket of tubes left over. A great analog for leather is rubber. You can literally just cut up the tubes into strips, duct tape it on a piece of wood, and that is one of the most brutal floggers that I have ever seen. It's just like made from strips of rubber.
I've also seen, and we sell them at the shop sometimes. If you're watching this, please make us more. Please. It's a plastic tube with marbles in it
Oh, goodness.
and a handle. It is the meanest thing. I always, every time I see something that's meant for impact play, I always hit my own arm with it. Just it's a thing I do.
Get a sample.
And I had a bruise on my arm for like 2 weeks. And it was just a quick little pop to see what the sensation would be like. It wasn't like actually going for it. But you'll notice this is very stingy because of the material.
Yeah, goodness.
And
Interesting.
you could cut the ends at a bias. And I normally go through and trim them so they're all kind of the same. But this took me 2 whole seconds.
Yeah, and 10% of a roll of duct tape.
Right? Or
Okay,
much more
that's a
duct
good
tape.
thud.
That is a good.
Yeah.
That's serious.
Are you brave enough?
Yeah, let's do it.
You know, pop your arm with it? Or pop the table with it?
Accidentally hit Christy in the face with it. Is what I'm gonna do. I like it.
So that'll get you there?
No, that'll get you.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely think that this can do the job.
Yeah, still
and
feeling the
it's
sting.
customizable.
Nice.
You know, you feel like because you made it, you can unmake it, you can change it, you can add to it, and I guess as your tolerance, as your experience level develops, you've got some options there.
And I'll bring the one I made. It was actually made of the colorful cute duct tape. So it has little purple owls on it.
Oh, that's delightful.
So you can kind of go for it. Oh, and then another use for duct tape. I do make these rattan canes. And I sell them at the shop with finished out handles, but this is my personal favorite one. This is for me. It has unicorn duct tape on it. So it can also function as a handle.
Well,
Amazing.
That is so awesome. I real quickly want to grab just one last call before we wrap it up for the night. Fred, we've got just about 5 minutes here, so real quickly, how can we help?
Hi. First, love the show.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
I get it on one of the atheist shows. I call in all the time, but I'm always like the atheist who's too late. All right, 5 minutes. All right, I'm trying to get through this as quick as I can.
Sure.
So I've been struggling with porn addiction and a lot of things that come with that, primarily like the ED and, delayed ejaculation, things like that. Like I'm 36 and I've been sexually active since I was 19, and I've gotten off 5 times from intercourse. The rest of it, it's just, never from oral or anything like that. And I just thought I was messed up. Listened to the audio book, and I've been struggling really bad with rebooting. And even just recently, I realized that it's, just kind of like with my generation, I haven't actually been sexually active without the influence of porn in some way, shape, or form. So it's something where I'm still struggling. Sorry, I'm like super nervous.
Sure.
It's something I'm been really struggling with, even just talking about. I've jumped on maybe a couple forums, talked to some really close friends about it. It's like I feel like there's an answer here, but like my first attempt at rebooting lasted about maybe 2 months, fell off the wagon, and then it's been like I can't even get through a month without failing again. And I know if I just keep doing it, keep trying, I feel like I will get there. But I mean, I've also been single for about 3 years now, 2 of which were a choice to be single because it had been like 10 years of just toxic relationships. But now I'm wanting to get it back out there. I'm wanting to date. Like I actually met a woman recently at a friend's wedding who I just really hit it off and really connected with. And I am utterly terrified to tell her about this because like I know, penetration is not the only aspect of sex.
Sure.
Like I get that. I mean, if anything, these last 10 years have taught me it's definitely more about, enjoying the journey than getting the destination.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let me just jump in
would
the
you
interest of
approach that?
time, if I can.
Sure.
I recognize that what you're going through is incredibly difficult, and it makes all the sense in the world to me that you feel like you're struggling and that you're not able to overcome this. And I might posit to you the idea that the reason you're not able to overcome this and the reason that you're not able to cure this disease with the things that you're trying is because the disease isn't what you think it is. I certainly recognize that you're struggling with ED, you're having issues, and it sounds like this is causing you a lot of distress. But I do need to point out that the World Health Organization, the Center for Disease Control, the American Psychological Association, all reject the notion that porn addiction is a thing that exists. That's not to say that you aren't struggling and having a really difficult time, and I certainly recognize that, but it's my stance that the thing that you're experiencing isn't addiction, and that model is not the healthiest or most effective way of understanding it. And there are a number of great books I can point you towards and some other resources. I don't want to just, throw that bomb at you and then expect you to take it and run with it, because I do want to first validate your experiences, that out-of-control sexual behavior can feel incredibly overwhelming and like you have no control over it. And I fully recognize how difficult that is. I will say that there are some incredible therapies that can be very, very useful, and the reason that they're useful is because they recognize that this is not a heroin addiction, this is not a alcohol addiction, and that those models, the 12 steps and the different medications and all of the different ways that we treat addiction in this country aren't effective with porn use, because porn is not an addiction.
It's a compulsive behavior, and I really want you right now, if you haven't heard of him already, look up Dr. David Lee.
Yep.
It's Ley.
We talk about him on the show a number of times.
Please
David
look
Lee?
him up. David Lee. He has basically written the book on
Yeah,
this.
literally The
And-
Myth of Sex Addiction
Right.
is one of his books.
And people like you have struggled with that sort of treatment. This is a totally different approach. And I want to point out that you're interested in this woman, and that's very exciting. There's a lot more to a relationship than sex, and I know that's hot stuff coming from a sexual health educator, but I would encourage you to build that friendship relationship with her. Don't be so afraid that you're not going to reach out in that capacity, because at least you could have a really great friend.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the foundation I'm trying to build here. But this is,
Exactly.
This is the first partner. Well, she's not even my partner, but this is the first person. Like, I'm pan, and I've gone through men and women, and some have been good, most have been bad. But this is the first person where, in a long time, where there seems like real potential there for something healthy and loving, and I really want to pursue that. And this is just something that I've been struggling with, and that to her.
That's incredibly exciting. And I guess I just want to echo, as we're forced to wrap up because of time, that the work of Dr. David Ley is a great place to start. I'll include, again, the links to his books and the footnotes for this show, as well as a really great article by Marty Klein. And then I'll go ahead and clue you in that not this coming week, but 2 weeks from today, Dr. Daryl Ray, the founder of this show, is actually going to be on with us again. And we specifically have set aside that time to discuss porn addiction in much more detail than we're able to do right now. But there are good resources out there, and the no fap movement and all of this Reddit information and all of these treatment centers are really coming at it from the wrong angle. And it's not the angle that's accepted by, all the organizations I just mentioned. It's coming from the whole porn addiction model is coming from people who are making a buck off of it. And it's quite frankly very upsetting to me that people like you have been struggling because of the bullshit that they're selling. So I would encourage you to take a look at those things and know that there is healing. There is opportunity to heal from ED and these other things moving forward.
May I add something real quick?
Please.
So I have ADHD, and I'm not saying how connected these two are.
Same.
So a lot of times, if I'm having sex and I'm having trouble, just getting off or even getting hard, a lot of it is meditation, trying to clear your mind, focusing on your body, focusing on what you're feeling. The human brain
is in the moment is one of the things I struggle with so much.
Exactly. It's going to pop up, and then that's going to get in the way of it. So a lot of it is kind of because I know I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to work at 7. If my wife wants to have sex at 8 o'clock at night, I literally just have to be look, I've got too much on my mind. It's not going to happen. So part of it is knowing how to clear that stuff from your mind, knowing how to pull yourself back into the situation, And it's one of the most difficult things that I have personally struggled with. Just like at some times, like my brain just will not let go of some shitty thing that happened to me in like the day. And I know that what you're talking about is far more severe than what this is, but I know that the aspect of meditation, clearing your mind, focusing on your body, focusing on that feeling, it's to break away kind of, I don't want to call it like a habit as we were just like discussing, but like your body falls into like the habit of getting off with visual stimulation, with like the idea of how like you have to have this thing going on in front of you. And like now what has to be done is you have to extract your mind from that habit and then create another habit, which is why it's so difficult and slow, because habit forming sucks. And it's more of the creation of the environment, which you now have to start focusing on a different environment, which will get you off. Does that make sense?
You can train yourself to get off almost anyway.
Yeah, that's very true. You can definitely kind of carve those new grooves. And I guess I would just say again, as we're finishing up for tonight, that there are real opportunities for healing. And it sounds like you've struggled with some fool's gold. And I guess I just want to validate that pain and recognize how upsetting that is to me, and to hear that you've been going through that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, the frustration has been great.
Yeah. Well, we'll make sure to include some links, and I hope that you'll tune in a couple of weeks when we have Dr. Ray on, and we'll be talking about this more. But for now, just know that there are some options out there, and thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
And thank you for what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
All right. Well, good to know that there are options out there, that there are things that can be helpful, because I do hear from so many people who are just frustrated that the abstinence-only model is not, changing things for them.
Right. Also, kind of going off what you said, just being open with a partner and saying, maybe not, disclosing everything if that's not what you feel comfortable with, but saying, hey, I may have some trouble, or my head's not really here right now. And if they're the right person, then they're gonna listen to that and be okay with that. It's not, you don't have to be 100% all the time. Like you can ask for a break. You can say, can we do this later?
Yeah, even in the context of a domination and submissive relationship and these different things, sex is an invitation, not a demand. So with that, I really want to thank y'all for coming in tonight and for showing us all this incredible stuff. Again, everybody can find more about Forbidden Fruit, as well as the workshops and everything else coming up on Instagram, on Facebook. I mean, we've linked our Facebook to it, forbiddenfruit.com. All of those things are available, and I'll be here. Fortunately, I'm excited to be here, but I will have to miss out on the next workshop. It sounds like it's going to be a good time.
But I am going to go buy some duct tape now.
Perfect.
Hey, and you can also text us at Forbidden Fruit too, or we will text you once a week. We have a sale that goes on about once a week, and we can text you or email you. We email you once or twice a month, depending on how many workshops we have. We're not like Nordstrom's just.
Yeah, so I actually am on the mailing list, and it's not a bother in the least bit. They don't spam. It's a good time.
One or two.
Okay, well, with that, I just want to thank y'all again. I want to thank everybody who joined us. For everybody that we didn't get a chance to talk to, or for anybody who still has questions, please feel free to shoot us an email. Let's keep the conversation going. You can also join the ACA and join us on Discord, as well as on Facebook. And otherwise, I think it's time to just encourage everybody out there, whether it's with a homemade toy or some very, very serious paddles, to go out there and give themselves a big ol' orgasm. Or, better yet, offer somebody else one.